The Liberté-class battleships were initially planned to be part of the République-class, which was to comprise 6 vessels. However, after construction started on the first 2, the British began building the King Edward VII-class battleships, which featured a powerful secondary armament of 9.2-inch guns. In response, the French Naval General Staff requested that the final 4 République-class ships be redesigned with a stronger secondary battery. Interestingly, the ship designer, Louis-Émile Bertin, had originally suggested such an armament for the République-class, but the idea was rejected due to the slower firing rate of larger guns compared to the 6.5-inch guns selected. As a result, the Liberté-class is often considered a sub-class of the République design, with the primary difference being the armament. Liberté measured 135.25 meters or 443 feet 9 inches in length, with a beam of 24.25 meters or 79 feet 7 inches and an average draft of 8.2 meters. The ship had a displacement of 14,000 metric tons at full load and featured a ram bow design. Power was provided by 3 4-cylinder vertical triple expansion steam engines, each connected to a propeller shaft, and steam was generated by 22 Belleville boilers. The engines produced 17,500 metric horsepower, designed to achieve a top speed of 18 knots. Though specific sea trial data for Liberté is unavailable, her sister ships all surpassed 19 knots. She carried 1,800 tons of coal, giving her a maximum range of 8,400 nautical miles at a cruising speed of 10 knots. The ship was manned by a crew of 32 officers and 710 enlisted personnel. Liberté's primary armament comprised 4 12-inch Model, 1893-96 guns, housed in 2 twin-gun turrets, one located forward and the other aft of the superstructure. Her secondary battery included 10 7.6-inch Model 1902 guns, with 6 mounted in single turrets and 4 positioned in hull casemates. The turrets were arranged in pairs, with one set beside the forward funnels, another amidships, and the last pair near the rear funnel. For defense against torpedo boats, she was equipped with 13 2.6-inch Model 1902 guns and 10 1.9-inch Model 1902 guns. Additionally, Liberté was fitted with 2 submerged 17.7-inch torpedo tubes on the broadside. The Liberté-class battleships featured a waterline armor belt that was 280 millimeters or 11 inches thick amidships, tapering to 180 millimeters or 7.1 inches at the ship's ends. This belt was connected to 2 armored decks. The upper deck, which was 54 millimeter or 2.1 inches thick, and the lower deck, measuring 51 millimeters or 2 inches thick with sloped sides of 70 millimeter or 2.8 inches. The main battery turrets were protected by up to 360 millimeters or 14.2 inches of armor on their fronts, while the secondary turrets had 156 millimeters or 6.1 inches of armor. The casemates were shielded by 174 millimeters or 6.9 inches of steel plating, and the conning tower was armored with 266 millimeters or 10.5 inches thick sides. Authorized under the 1900 Statute Naval or Naval Law, Liberté was laid down in November 1902 at the Atelier et Chantier de la Loire shipyard in Saint-Nazaire and launched on April 19, 1905. On September 5, 1907, she sailed to the Arsenal de Brest in Brest, France, where her armament was installed. Liberté left Brest on March 18, heading for the Mediterranean, and upon arriving in Toulon, she was declared complete on April 13, 1908. This was more than a year after the launch of the revolutionary British battleship HMS Dreadnought, which made pre-dreadnoughts like Liberté obsolete before they even entered service. After her commissioning, Liberté joined the 2nd Division of the Mediterranean Squadron alongside her sister ships Justice, the divisional flagship, and Vérité. In June and July, the Mediterranean and Northern Squadrons held their annual maneuvers off Bizerte, with the 2nd Division returning to Bizerte for a visit in October. By February 1909, the entire squadron was anchored in Villefranche and conducted training exercises near Corsica. This was followed by a naval review in Villefranche for President Armand Fallières on April 26. During these training exercises on March 17, Liberté, along with the battleships Justice, Patrie, and République, participated in gunnery practice using the old ironclad Tempête as a target. On the 2nd of June, Liberté, Démocratie, Patrie, and the armored cruiser Ernest Renan departed for training exercises in the Atlantic. 10 days later, they rendezvoused with République, Justice, and the protected cruiser Galilée in Cadiz, Spain. Their training included serving as targets for the fleet's submarines in the Pertuis d'Antioche Strait. The ships then headed north to La Pallice, conducting wireless telegraphy tests and gunnery exercises in Quiberon Bay. From July 8 to 15, the squadron was stationed in Brest before sailing to Le Havre for a fleet review by President Armand Fallières on July 17. A second fleet review followed in Cherbourg on July 27 during the visit of Tsar Nicholas II of Russia. On September 12, Liberté and the other 2nd Division battleships left Brest for the United States to represent France in the Hudson-Fulton celebration, commemorating the 300th anniversary of the European discovery of the Hudson River. The squadron returned to Toulon on October 27. The year 1910 was largely uneventful for Liberté, apart from the usual routine of training exercises. From May 21 to June 4, maneuvers took place for the 6 Liberté and République-class battleships off Sardinia and Algeria, followed by additional exercises with the rest of the Mediterranean squadron from June 7 to 18. In early December, a typhoid outbreak among the crews forced the Navy to quarantine the ships in Gulf Juan to contain the illness, which subsided by December 15. On April 16, 1911, Liberté and the fleet escorted Vérité, carrying President Armand Fallières, Naval Minister Théophile Delcassé, and Minister of Public Works Charles Dumont, to Bizerte. Upon their arrival 2 days later, a fleet review was held on April 19, featuring 2 British battleships, 2 Italian battleships, and a Spanish cruiser. The fleet returned to Toulon on April 29, where Fallières rewarded the crews with doubled rations and suspended punishments to express his gratitude for their efforts. In mid-1911, the French Naval Command reorganized the Mediterranean Squadron, forming the 1st and 2nd Battle Squadrons, with Liberté assigned to the 1st Squadron. In May and June, the ships of the 1st Squadron, along with the armored cruisers Ernest Renan and Léon Gambetta, embarked on a cruise through the western Mediterranean, visiting several ports including Cagliari, Bizerte, Beaune, Philippeville, Algiers, and Bougie. By the 1st of August, the newer Danton-class battleships began entering service and were assigned to the 1st Squadron, resulting in the reassignment of the Liberté and République-class ships to the 2nd Squadron. On September 4th, both squadrons participated in a major fleet review for President Armand Fallières off Toulon. The fleet then embarked on maneuvers off Gulf Juan and Marseille starting on September 11th, returning to Toulon on September 16th, where they remained for the next 9 days. At 05:31 on the morning of September 25th, crew members aboard nearby battleships spotted smoke rising from Liberté, originating from her forward starboard casemate. Shortly after, flames engulfed the forward superstructure, but observers initially believed the crew was bringing the fire under control. However, at 05:53, a massive explosion ripped through Liberté, shaking the entire harbor. The blast caused extensive damage. Both central 194mm turrets were thrown overboard, the deck amidships collapsed, and the forward 55 meters or 180 feet of the ship was completely obliterated. The forward 305mm turret was shattered, with only one of the guns recovered, found in the harbor's muddy bottom. The explosion hurled a 37 metric ton piece of armor plate from Liberté into the battleship République. Moored about 210 meters or 690 feet away, causing substantial damage. Fragments from the blast also sank a steam pinnace and caused fatalities across several nearby ships. 15 men aboard the armored cruiser Marseillaise, 9 on the battleship St. Louis, 6 on the armored cruiser Léon Gambetta, 4 on the battleship Suffren, and 3 on Démocratie. Liberté's remaining crew quickly abandoned the ship, with 286 killed and 188 wounded in the disaster. Fortunately, 143 crew members, including the ship's commander, were on leave in Toulon at the time and escaped the accident. On September 25th, the Navy convened a commission aboard Justice to investigate the explosion, led by Contre-Amiral or Rear Admiral Jean Gachard and officers from Justice. While sabotage was initially considered, it was ruled out. The investigation concluded that excessive heat in the magazines likely caused the disaster and determined that existing ammunition monitoring procedures were inadequate. The French Navy had already experienced a series of fatal accidents in Toulon. In February 1907, a torpedo boat explosion killed 9 men, followed by the destruction of the battleship Iéna in March, which claimed 107 lives. In August 1908, 6 men died in an explosion aboard a gunnery training ship, and another blast killed 13 on a cruiser in September 1910. Just 2 weeks before Liberté's explosion, 6 men died aboard the cruiser Gloire on September 10, 1911. The cause of these incidents was unstable Poudre B, a nitrocellulose-based propellant responsible for the destruction of Iéna and likely linked to the other explosions. After the disaster, the Navy implemented new regulations requiring the disposal of propellant charges older than 4 years. Initially applied only to battleship squadrons, this rule was later extended to the entire fleet. The Navy minister also reversed an earlier order that required gun crews to return misfired charges to the magazines. From then on, any charge placed in a gun had to either be fired or discarded. The commission found that the magazine flooding systems were inadequate, but only modest improvements were made. The wreck of Liberté remained in Toulon for years, though efforts to clear or mark navigational hazards began immediately. The First World War caused significant delays in refloating the hull. By 1920, the wreck had started sinking into the mud, necessitating extensive preparation, including divers building cofferdams to seal the hull. On the 4th of September 1920, the old cruiser La Touche-Trevis, equipped with 4, later 6, compressed air pumps, was stationed alongside as a barracks and workshop for the workers. Submarines and smaller vessels also assisted. On February 21, 1925, Liberté's hull was refloated using compressed air and towed into a Toulon dry dock for dismantling.